Puerto Rico had promised paradise, but instead, it erupted into pure chaos the moment the cameras started rolling, under the golden sun and swaying palm trees. What was supposed to be a relaxing cast getaway spiraled into one of the most shocking confrontations reality TV has ever seen. Fans who tuned in expecting beachside bonding were instead left with jaws on the floor, as Spice stormed into the center of the villa, her voice cutting through the tropical air like thunder. What followed wasn't just an argument, it was an explosion of secrets, betrayal, and fiery accusations that no one saw coming. "Zane, Ashley, you think you can play me for a fool? Not here, not now, not ever," she shouted, her words shaking the entire room as castmates froze in stunned silence. Viewers could almost feel the tension through their screens. And social media lit up instantly, with fans tweeting that they had never seen Spice this furious. But what exactly pushed her over the edge? Was it a whispered betrayal, a hidden romance, or a plot against her place in the spotlight? All anyone knows for sure is that the moment Spice locked eyes with Zane and Ashley, the air grew thick with suspense. "You've been smiling in my face while stabbing me in the back," she snapped, pacing like a storm ready to strike. Ashley's gasp, Zane's nervous smirk, and the cast's wide-eyed reactions only fueled the drama further. Rumors had been swirling for weeks, but no one expected them to erupt so violently and in front of everyone. As emotions ran high, alliances began to crumble. Friends were forced to choose sides, and fans were left asking, how far would this confrontation go before someone finally walked out? One thing was clear: Puerto Rico would never be the same again. The villa in Puerto Rico was glowing with fairy lights, the ocean breeze drifting in through the open terrace. But the mood was anything but calm. What started as laughter and cocktails quickly turned into something darker the moment Spice slammed her glass down on the table, the sound echoing louder than the waves outside. Everyone froze. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. "You think I don't know what's going on?" Spice's voice cracked like lightning, her eyes locked on Ashley. The room went silent except for the clinking of someone nervously setting their drink aside. Ashley shifted in her seat, her smile trembling, but Zane leaned back with a smirk that only made things worse. "Spice, you trippin'," Zane said coolly, his arms stretched across the back of the couch as if he were unfazed. "Ain't nobody doing nothing behind your back." "Don't play me, Zane," Spice shot back, her voice rising, trembling with the weight of weeks of bottled frustration. "The streets talk, the fans talk, and trust me, receipts don't lie." She waved her phone in the air, and the glow of the screen lit her face in a furious glare. The rest of the cast was torn between shock and fascination. Cameras zoomed in on Erica's wide eyes, on Rashida whispering, "Oh my God, this is about to blow." Fans later replayed those moments frame by frame, pointing out every nervous glance, every hidden smirk. Ashley finally spoke, her voice shaking. "You don't understand, Spice. This ain't what it looks like." Spice laughed bitterly. "What it looks like, girl, it looks exactly like betrayal. And you know it." At that moment, chaos erupted. Voices clashed over each other, accusations flew like daggers, and the once beautiful night dissolved into shouting, tears, and finger-pointing. Cast members tried to pull them apart, but Spice wasn't backing down. She was done holding secrets in, and for the first time, Zane and Ashley were cornered with nowhere to hide. And that was just the beginning. The shouting match spilled out onto the villa's poolside deck, where the night air carried every word across the waves. What was once a peaceful retreat now felt like a battlefield, lit by torches that flickered against furious faces. Spice stormed ahead, her heels striking the tiles like drumbeats, while Zane followed with that same smug grin that infuriated her even more. Ashley trailed behind, tears streaking her face, pleading for everyone to calm down. But nobody wanted calm anymore. Calm was long gone. "You sittin' here actin' like you innocent," Spice shouted, spinning around so suddenly that Ashley almost stumbled into her. "But you been whispering, plotting, and smiling in my face while you out here playing games with Zane. Do you think I'm blind?" Ashley's voice cracked. "Spice, please. It wasn't like that." Zane cut her off, his tone sharp. "Ashley, don't explain up. Let her be mad. She just jealous. She ain't in control, for once." The entire cast gasped. Even the crew exchanged nervous looks behind the cameras. Those words hit Spice like gasoline to a fire. "Jealous." Spice's laughter turned cold. "Bitter. You think I'm jealous of the two of you sneaking around like rats? Boy, please. I built this show. I built my name. And you think you can use me for clout? Nah, tonight, the truth comes out. The truth." That word hung in the humid air like thunder before a storm. Erica leaned toward Rashida, whispering, "She's about to drop something big." And drop it, she did. Spice pulled her phone back out, scrolling with trembling hands until she stopped and thrust the screen in Zane's face. "Explain this." Gasps echoed as she read out loud. "Meet me by the pier at midnight. Don't tell Spice." It was a screenshot of a text, allegedly between Zane and Ashley. The camera zoomed in as Ashley's face turned pale, her lips trembling. "Fake," Zane snapped, but his voice cracked slightly, betraying the calm act. "Anybody could have made that up. Then why Ashley can't look me in the eye?" Spice roared. She turned sharply, pointing a finger at her. "Look at me, Ashley. Say it's fake. Say you ain't been sneaking around with him when you think I ain't watching." Ashley's silence said more than words ever could, the tears streaming down her cheeks. The way she fumbled with her bracelet, the way she avoided Spice's piercing stare, it was enough for the cast to believe there was more truth than lie. "Wow," Erica muttered under her breath. "This is bad. This is real bad." Social media later exploded with rewinds of that exact moment, fans posting clips with captions like "Ashley couldn't even deny it," and Zane's face when Spice pulled out receipts. But just when it seemed Ashley would finally confess, she shocked everyone. "Fine," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but carrying enough power to silence the crowd. "It wasn't what you think. Yes, I met him, but it wasn't to betray you. It was to warn him about you." The words hit harder than any slap. Spice's jaw dropped, Zane's smirk faltered, and the entire cast froze as if the ground had vanished beneath them. "What did you just say?" Spice asked, her voice dangerously low. Ashley straightened, her tears drying into resolve. "I met Zane because I was tired of the way you control everybody. The way you pit us against each other just so you can stay on top. I wanted to tell him I wasn't playing your games anymore. And if that makes me the villain, so be it." The pool deck erupted into chaos once again. Half the cast gasped in shock. Others shook their heads in disbelief. And Spice stood trembling, torn between fury and heartbreak. Fans watching later would say, this was the exact moment the family was left divided, some siding with Spice's claim of betrayal, others seeing Ashley as brave for finally standing up to her. And just when it felt like the drama had peaked, another voice rose from the corner, cutting through the shouting like a knife. It was someone no one expected to speak, someone holding a secret of their own. The silence after Ashley's shocking confession didn't last long. From the far corner of the deck, where most people assumed he'd been quietly sipping his drink, Marcus finally spoke up. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried like a crack of thunder in the still night. Everybody pointing fingers, but nobody talking about the real dirt. Marcus said, leaning forward in his chair. "Y'all acting like this is just about Zane and Ashley, but Spice got skeletons too. And I'm tired of watching her pretend she's the victim." Gasps rippled through the cast like a wave. Spice whipped around, her eyes blazing. "What the hell are you talking about, Marcus? Don't play with me." "Oh, I'm not playing," Marcus said coolly, locking eyes with her. "You wanna talk receipts? I got some of my own. While you out here dragging Zane and Ashley, maybe you should explain why you've been meeting up with producers behind everybody's back, plotting storylines to make us all look bad, just so you can shine." The deck went dead silent. Even the ocean seemed to hush, as if waiting for Spice's response. The cameras zoomed in on her face, eyes wide, jaw clenched, struggling to form words. "That's a lie," she snapped, though her voice wavered ever so slightly. "Is it?" Marcus pulled out his phone, tapping furiously until he turned the screen around. The glow revealed a string of messages, allegedly between Spice and one of the producers. "Make sure Ashley looks messy next episode. Don't give Zane too much screen time. I need the spotlight." The cast erupted in shock. Erica slapped her hand over her mouth. Rashida muttered, "Oh no, she didn't." And Zane, seizing his moment, jumped to his feet with laughter that cut through the tension. Like glass. See what I'm saying?" he yelled, pointing at Spice. "You've been out here accusing everybody else, but the whole time you the one puppeteering behind the scenes. Fans need to see this. You ain't no victim, Spice, you the master manipulator." The word manipulator hung in the air like poison. Spice's face twisted with rage, and she stepped right into Marcus's space, pointing a finger at his chest. "You a liar, Marcus? A damn liar? If you think you can turn this cast against me, you better think again." But Ashley, her voice trembling with newfound courage, spoke up again. "He's not lying, Spice. You've been pulling strings since day one. I kept quiet because I respected you, but not anymore. Everybody needs to know the truth." Fans watching from home later described this as the turning point. In seconds, the power shifted. For years, Spice had been the queen of the franchise, the one calling the shots, the center of every storyline. But now, with Marcus and Ashley both turning on her, her throne looked shakier than ever. The poolside arguments dragged on, voices clashing in the night, until producers were forced to step in. Security hovered nervously nearby, ready to intervene if things turned physical. Spice screamed about betrayal. Zane gloated in the chaos. Ashley wept but stood her ground, and Marcus smirked like a man who had just detonated a bomb. But just when it seemed things couldn't spiral any further, a voice crackled through the producers' headsets. Word had come in from the villa entrance. Someone unexpected had just arrived. Someone who wasn't supposed to be in Puerto Rico at all. The cast froze as the heavy wooden doors creaked open. Every eye turned to see who it wasn't when the figure stepped inside. Jaws dropped. It was a face from the past. Someone whose history with Spice had once torn the family apart. The villa's wooden doors opened with a groan, and when the figure stepped inside, the energy shifted instantly. It was none other than Lana, Spice's former best friend turned sworn rival, whose sudden arrival in Puerto Rico sent shockwaves through both the cast and the fans watching at home. And in that instant, every whisper of the past came rushing back: the betrayals, the fights, the tears on reunion stages, the shocking allegations that once nearly ended Spice's career, and now, here she was, standing in the doorway with fire in her eyes and a smirk curling her lips as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. Rashida muttered under her breath, "Oh hell no." Erica clutched her chest like she couldn't breathe. Zane burst out laughing at the sheer audacity, while Spice herself froze in place, her confidence crumbling into pure shock before anger took over, and her voice cracked through the air. "What is she doing here? Who let this snake back into my life?" But Lana didn't flinch. She strutted across the deck in heels that clicked against the tiles. Her gaze locked on Spice as she spoke with venom. "You thought you could erase me. You thought you could run the show without me. But guess what? Time back. And I've got receipts too." And with that, the entire cast gasped as she waved a thick envelope in the air, which she claimed was full of contracts, secret payments, and text messages proving that Spice had been secretly sabotaging cast members' careers for years. And though Spice lunged forward with fury in her eyes, screaming lies, all lies, producers held her back while Zane taunted from the sidelines. "This is the karma you've been running from, Spice." The chaos spiraled so wildly that Ashley broke down sobbing, screaming at Lana, "Why would you even come here? You don't know what we've been going through." To which Lana snapped back, "I know enough. I've been watching just like the fans. And it's time everybody saw the truth." And then, in a twist nobody saw coming, Marcus admitted that he had been the one to secretly contact Lana, begging her to fly out and expose Spice once and for all, which triggered Spice to scream so loudly the entire villa echoed, "You Judas. You brought the devil to my doorstep." The family was shattered. Emotions ran high as accusations were hurled like daggers, with Erica suddenly siding with Lana out of nowhere, declaring that she too had been manipulated by Spice for years. "You told me what to say, who to hate, and when to cry, and I went along with it because I thought you had my back. But you never did. You only had your back." While Rashida tried to mediate, crying herself as she begged everyone to calm down. "This is tearing us apart, y'all. This is deeper than TV. This is family." But her voice was drowned out by Zane cackling, Spice screaming, and Ashley begging the producers to cut the cameras. Though of course the cameras kept rolling because this was the kind of explosive television producers dream about. Fans online went into overdrive. Hashtags like #Puerto Rico meltdown and #SpiceExposed began trending worldwide. Clips of Spice's face when Lana walked in were shared millions of times, and comment sections filled with fans arguing over who was in the wrong. Some calling Spice a manipulator who finally got caught, others insisting the entire cast was jealous of her success. And meanwhile, back in the villa, Lana dropped her final bombshell, tearing open the envelope and scattering papers across the table. Papers that revealed Spice had allegedly demanded extra pay from producers under the threat of walking away from filming. And worse, that she had allegedly pushed producers to fire one cast member years ago just to keep the spotlight on herself. The room erupted into chaos once more. Erica screaming, "I knew it. I knew she had something to do with that," while Rashida broke down saying, "This is too much. This is too much." And Spice collapsed into a chair, holding her head in her hands, trembling with both rage and humiliation, muttering, "They all against me. Every last one of them." But then, in a twist that nobody could have predicted, Zane turned his back on Ashley and Marcus, declaring that he wasn't going to be their pawn anymore, shouting at Lana, "You don't scare me. And you don't scare Spice either," and suddenly choosing to defend the very woman he had been accused of betraying minutes earlier. which stunned Ashley so badly that she screamed. "So now you gonna play hero? After everything? After the texts?" Her voice cracking as she lunged at him, shoving him in the chest before breaking down into uncontrollable sobs, while Zane yelled back, "You were never ride or die. You were just bitter, jealous of Spice, jealous of me, jealous of everybody." And the scene devolved into near-physical brawls, with security rushing in to hold people back, producers screaming into their headsets, and the cast split down the middle as some began chanting Team Spice, while others yelled Team Lana. And Rashida's tearful voice echoed in the background, "The family is broken. The family is broken," all while cameras zoomed in on Spice's trembling hands as she whispered, "They want to see me fall. But I will never fall. Not today, not in Puerto Rico, not ever." And that defiance, that fire in her eyes, left fans buzzing with one question: would Spice manage to rise from the ashes of betrayal? Or was this the night the Queen finally lost her crown? The night stretched on in Puerto Rico, but the tension only grew heavier, thick like the humid island air, as the cast found themselves spiraling deeper into chaos. The poolside looked less like a vacation and more like a courtroom, with everyone throwing accusations, defenses, and confessions like daggers. And at the center of it all, Spice sat trembling, her face streaked with tears but her eyes burning with rage as she snapped at Lana, "You don't belong here. You were done. You were gone. So why crawl back into my life unless somebody begged you to?" And though Marcus had already confessed to pulling Lana back into the mix, Ashley jumped in too, screaming, "It wasn't just Marcus. I told them to call you. I wanted the world to see what kind of person Spice really is." Which sent Spice flying out of her chair, lunging across the deck before security grabbed her midst, and she howled like a woman possessed, "You snakes, all of you snakes, you wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for me." While Lana smirked coldly and said, "That's the problem, you think you created everybody? But you forgot people can rise without you." And just as the cast tried to catch their breath, Zane shocked everyone once again by grabbing the envelope of papers Lana had dropped, crumpling them in his hands, and tossing them into the pool, yelling, "These are just words on paper. You think this proves anything? Spice don't need to answer to you. Not now, not ever." Which left Ashley shrieking, "What are you doing, Zane? You just betrayed me again," and lunging at him in a fit of fury while Rashida pulled her back, sobbing herself, "Stop, stop before somebody gets hurt." But Ashley wouldn't stop. She tore free of Rashida's grip and shouted, "You're weak, Zane, weak and stupid. She's been using you and you still defend her like some lost puppy." And Zane fired back, his voice, "Puppy." And Zane fired back, his voice, booming over the crashing waves. "At least I ain't a coward hiding behind secret texts and whispers. At least I stand on mine." And the cast roared with gasps, Erica clutching her pearls like she was watching the end of the world, while Marcus sneered, "You stand on lies, boy, and you don't even realize she's laughing at you behind your back." And that triggered Spice to leap up again, pointing at Marcus with venom, "You jealous? You've been jealous since day one. You couldn't stand that the fans wanted me, that producers trusted me, so now you bring back ghosts to destroy me. But I promise you, Marcus, you gon' regret this night." And the camera zoomed in on her trembling face as fans later replayed the clip with captions like, "This is cinema and Spice really said Judas." But the most shocking turn was still to come, because just as Lana prepared to unleash even more receipts, a producer stepped forward with breaking news, waving his phone in panic, saying the network had just leaked footage from earlier in the trip, and it was about to air publicly, unedited, raw, without the cast's knowledge. He explained that the footage showed a secret midnight meeting between Ashley and Marcus by the pier, contradicting Ashley's earlier story that she met with Zane, alone. And the cast collectively gasped so hard it felt like the island itself shuddered. Ashley screamed, "That's not true. That's not true," while Marcus swore they editing this to frame me. But Spice's laughter echoed through the villa, maniacal and triumphant. "Look at y'all. Liars exposed by your own lies. The fans gone eat this up." And indeed, social media exploded instantly, with hashtags like #AshleyPiermeet and #MarcusLiar joining the trending list, while fans took sides more aggressively than ever. Comment wars breaking out between #TeamSpice supporters calling her a queen for surviving betrayal and #TeamAshleyStans insisting she was being framed. Inside the villa, the fallout grew darker, with Rashida finally collapsing into tears on the floor screaming, "This ain't worth it. This show ain't worth it. We losing ourselves," while Erica accused the producers of orchestrating the entire disaster, yelling, "Y'all knew this would break us. Y'all knew and you let it happen, which made one producer snap back. Nobody forced you to text. Nobody forced you to meet. Y'all did this on your own. And that only added more fuel to the fire. The cast spinning in circles of blame until suddenly Lana dropped her final twist, leaning forward with a sinister smile. You all so busy accusing each other, but none of you know the truth about why I really came here. Spice didn't just sabotage you. She sabotaged me years ago. She cost me my family. She cost me my relationship. She cost me everything. And I came here tonight not just to expose her, but to take back what she stole. And the way she said it made the cast freeze, because for the first time all night, Spice went completely silent, her face draining of color as she muttered, "Don't you dare, Lana." But Lana continued, "Tell them, Spice. Tell them about the man you stole from me. Tell them about the baby you never acknowledged. Tell them the truth, or I will." The cast gasped so loudly it echoed like thunder across the water. Erica screamed, "What baby?" Rashida clapped her hand over her mouth in shock. Ashley sobbed into her hands, whispering, "Oh my God." And Zane stared at Spice in disbelief, muttering, "Tell me this ain't real. Spice, please tell me this ain't real." But Spice just sat frozen, trembling, unable to deny it, unable to confess, caught in the most dangerous silence of her life as the cameras zoomed closer and closer, capturing every flicker of fear in her eyes, while fans watching from home screamed at their screens, begging for answers, flooding social media with wild theories about hidden children, stolen lovers, and years of secrets buried under Spice's glamorous image. And in that moment, Puerto Rico became more than a cast trip, more than a vacation gone wrong. It became the stage for the ultimate showdown, a battle of reputations, betrayals, and bombshells that left the family divided, the fans stunned, and the future of everyone involved hanging by a single, trembling thread. The night stretched into a storm of words and wounds that seemed to have no end. The energy in that Puerto Rican villa twisting tighter with every confession and every accusation. The cast caught in a whirlpool of raw emotions where alliances collapsed and new ones formed in seconds. The cameras capturing the chaos with an unflinching lens, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath at the eruption of truths that no one had dared to speak before. Spice, still standing in the center of the living room, had become both executioner and victim, her voice cutting like glass as she dragged every hidden secret into the open, no longer sparing Ashley or Zane but now pulling in Erica, Rashida, and even Jock, saying that everyone had played their part in keeping lies alive, that everyone had smiled in her face while whispering behind her back. And though some tried to deny it, the heat of the moment made the truth too sharp to ignore, with Ashley breaking down into tears that stained her makeup, while Zane, though trying to stay on, began pacing the room with clenched fists as if trapped between defending himself and exploding at the accusations. His silence telling more than words ever could, and Erica, ever the firestarter, threw in her own stabs, shouting that this was just another example of men disrespecting women in this circle, that everyone should be ashamed of protecting Zane when he had clearly crossed a line. But Zane finally snapped and shouted back, his words cutting across the chaos like thunder, claiming that half of the people in the room weren't saints either, that Rashida had her own secrets she wasn't ready to face, that Erica herself had skeletons she buried deep, and the air thickened with the heavy knowledge that everyone was guilty of something, that this confrontation was less about Spice, Ashley, and Zane and more about the fragile web that had been holding the entire cast together, a web that now ripped apart thread by thread as trust evaporated into nothing. And in the midst of the storm, Spice's laughter turned bitter and sharp, echoing off the villa walls like a warning bell, her voice cracking as she said she wasn't going to let anyone use her name to cover their own mess anymore, that from this night forward she was burning every fake friendship to ash, her words resonating in the uneasy silence that followed because everyone knew she meant it. And in that pause, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in, that the season was no longer about music, or business, or love triangles, but about betrayal, power, and the price of silence. And as the ocean waves crashed outside like a soundtrack to the chaos within, the night became etched into their history. A night that would follow them long after the cameras stopped rolling. A night fans would dissect in countless clips. A night that proved once again that secrets, once exposed, can never be buried again. And yet the tension only grew heavier when Ashley, wiping her face, finally found the courage to confess that Zane wasn't the only one she had been connected to, that another cast member had been involved all along. And as the words left her lips, the entire room froze again, breaths caught mid-air, eyes darting to each other in disbelief. And just like that, the explosion everyone thought had already happened ignited again, fiercer and more destructive than before, pulling every person into the fire. The air inside that villa thickened like smoke after Ashley's words, her trembling voice admitting that Zane wasn't the only one she had tangled herself with, that someone else at that very table was involved. And the weight of her confession dropped on the group like a grenade, sending shockwaves through the cast as every eye darted suspiciously around the room, hearts pounding, jaws tightening, whispers breaking out like sparks in dry grass, the entire house vibrating with disbelief, and Spice, still trembling with rage, leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as if she could strip the truth bare just by staring through Ashley's tear-stained face, her voice dropping low and dangerous as she demanded to know who the other man was. The silence that followed pressing against everyone's ribs until Ashley finally looked up and whispered a name. So softly, it almost drowned beneath the sound of the ocean outside, but the microphones caught it, the cameras zoomed in, and the room erupted in chaos once more as Jock's name rang out, sending Rashida leaping to her feet with a gasp, Erica clutching her chest in shock, and Jock himself stammering, his mouth moving but no words forming fast enough to explain how his name had just been dragged into a scandal that could split the group down the middle, the sheer disbelief painting itself across his face as Ashley, now sobbing uncontrollably, kept repeating that it wasn't supposed to come out this way, that she hadn't meant for feelings to go that far, that Jock had promised her things in late-night conversations when the cameras weren't around, but Spice wasn't hearing any of it, her fury boiling over as she shouted that this was the ultimate betrayal, that not only had Ashley gone behind her back with Zane, but also with someone she considered a brother, her words slicing the night like a blade and fueling the fire until voices overlapped again, some screaming, some defending, some denying, the producers stepping in to hold back cast members who were now shoving, pointing, and crying all at once, and yet the cameras refused to cut, catching every raw moment as Jock finally raised his voice, swearing that Ashley was exaggerating, that yes, they had talked, yes, they had flirted, but nothing serious had happened. Though the guilty hesitation in his eyes betrayed the weight of a half-truth that only made the room more hostile, because in this circle perception mattered more than facts, and the mere hint of betrayal was enough to ruin reputations, friendships, and marriages. So Rashida turned on him with fire in her eyes, accusing him of dragging the group into more mess, accusing him of humiliating her once again, and Jock's attempts to defend himself only dug the hole deeper, while Erica seized the moment to remind everyone that she had called this out weeks ago, that she had sensed something wasn't right with Ashley's energy, and Spice, pacing the floor like a lioness in a cage, screamed that she wasn't going to be made a fool anymore, that she wanted every single truth to come out tonight, no matter how ugly it was. And that challenge hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike, daring the others to reveal their sins, daring the cameras to keep rolling, daring fate itself to shatter what was left of their fragile circle. And one by one, secrets began to crack open, some admitted through tears, some exposed in shouts, until the night turned into a purge of confessions, betrayals piling on betrayals, alliances collapsing into dust. And through it, all the waves outside kept pounding the shore as if echoing the rhythm of destruction, the ocean itself bearing witness to the unraveling of trust. And when dawn finally threatened to break, the villa lay in ruins, not of wood and stone but of loyalty and love. The cast scattered into corners of silence, some weeping, some seething, some whispering into phones to explain themselves to partners back home. The aftermath of Ashley's confession proving far deadlier than anyone could have predicted. And yet, deep down everyone knew this was only the beginning, that the storm had not passed but merely shifted, building strength for the next strike. Because on this island, under these lights, in this season, nothing stays buried forever. And the cameras would be there to capture every fragment of the fallout. Under the dim light of dawn, the Puerto Rican sky shifted from black to gray, but inside the villa, no one felt the calm of a new day, because the air was still poisoned by the chaos of the night before, and the cast was scattered like broken glass across the property, some lying awake in their rooms replaying every scream, some pacing the halls like ghosts, some whispering into phones back home to spin their side of the story before the footage aired, but none of them could escape the pounding truth that Ashley's confession had destroyed what little balance the group had left. And when the cameras turned back on that morning, producers pushing everyone toward the common area, the tension was so thick that even the crew spoke in hushed voices, waiting for someone to ignite the fire again. And it didn't take long, because Spice walked in first, her head high, her expression carved from steel, her bright island colors clashing with the storm in her eyes. And the second she sat down, she demanded answers, her voice booming as she asked Jock to look her in the eye and tell the truth once and for all. No jokes, no dodges, no deflections, and Jock, sweating in the corner of the sofa, cleared his throat and muttered that it wasn't what people thought, that Ashley had twisted things, but Ashley herself, red-eyed from crying all night, spoke over him, her voice shaking yet determined as she declared that Jock had whispered promises of leaving Rashida, that he had held her when the cameras weren't around, that he had told her she deserved better than being treated like an outsider, and the room exploded again, Rashida jumping up with tears streaming down her face, screaming at Jock that she had forgiven him too many times, that she had carried his burdens, stood by him in public humiliation, and this was how he repaid her. And Jock, desperate, stood to, raising his voice over hers, saying Ashley was exaggerating, that he never promised to leave Rashida, that Ashley was twisting late-night talks into fantasies. But the doubt was already eating away at Rashida's resolve, and the cast divided instantly, some rushing to Rashida's side to comfort her, others scolding Jock, while a few stared at Ashley in disgust, calling her a snake, and in the corner, Erica smirked, muttering that she had warned them all, that she always knew Ashley was a problem, which only set Spice off again, because she didn't want Erica to act like a prophet when she herself had been stirring drama for weeks. And the two women clashed in a fresh screaming match, Spice accusing Erica of fanning flames while Erica clapped back that Spice was blind, and the entire room devolved into overlapping shouts until Zane, silent until now, slammed his hand on the table and demanded everyone listen to him, his voice quivering with a mix of guilt and rage as he confessed that yes, he had crossed a line with Ashley, yes, he had betrayed Spice's trust, but Jock had too. And if everyone was going to burn him alive, then they better hold Jock to the same fire, because he wasn't going to take the fall alone. And those words cracked the room open once more, fresh wounds splitting across friendships, Spice clutching her head as if trying to block out the betrayal from every direction, Rashida sobbing harder, Jock cursing under his breath, Ashley burying her face in her hands, Erica shouting that the truth was finally out, and the rest of the cast, looking back and forth like spectators at a tennis match, unsure who to defend, who to blame, who to believe. And then came the producer's voice, firm, cutting through the noise, announcing that the group was heading to the beach for a mediation circle, that the show needed resolution, that they had to face each other under the sun and decide what came next. And though many resisted, screaming that they weren't ready, that they couldn't sit with liars and snakes, the crew herded them outside, cameras rolling, the morning sun beating down on their broken faces, the waves roaring in the background as if mocking them, and one by one, they sat in a circle on the sand, eyes swollen, voices cracking, the sea breeze carrying the weight of their confessions. And it was there that Spice finally broke, her voice raw as she said she didn't recognize the people around her anymore, that she had come to Puerto Rico hoping to bond, to heal, to grow, but instead she had been stabbed from every angle, and tears poured down her cheeks as she asked who among them was truly her friend, truly loyal. And the silence that followed was the loudest sound of all, because no one could answer without lying. And in that silence the group realized how fragile they had become, that this wasn't just a storyline, it was the unraveling of trust, the exposure of wounds that might never close. And yet the cameras kept rolling, the drama feeding itself like fire on dry wood, and fans would soon see every tear, every curse, every fractured piece of their lives broadcast for the world to dissect. The family left divided, emotions shredded, and Puerto Rico forever remembered as the place where everything broke apart. The circle on the beach looked almost peaceful from a distance, framed by golden sand and waves that glistened in the sunlight, but the closer you got, the more you could feel the tension humming in the air like a live wire, each cast member sitting stiff, eyes darting between one another, waiting for the next explosion, because though the producers had demanded mediation, there was no calm in their hearts, only simmering rage, betrayal, and wounds too fresh to heal. And it was Spice who broke the silence first, her voice low, rough from the screaming and crying of the night before, as she said she wasn't here to play games, that she wasn't here to let anyone lie to her face anymore, and she turned her body toward Jock and Ashley, staring at them both with such intensity that even the sound of the waves seemed to hush, and she said, "I need the truth now, because I won't sit here in the same circle with liars pretending like nothing happened." And Jock, shifting uncomfortably, finally lifted his head, his usual cocky grin gone, his voice cracking as he muttered that yes, he had crossed a line with Ashley, that yes, there had been moments of weakness, late-night talks that went too far, touches that shouldn't have happened, but he swore it had never gone as deep as Ashley claimed. And his words hung in the air like smoke, because though they admitted guilt, they were slippery, vague, designed to save his skin, and Ashley wasn't having it. Shaking her head furiously, tears streaming down her face as she shouted that he was still lying, that he was minimizing, that he had whispered to her under the moonlight that Rashida wasn't right for him, that he felt trapped, that he wanted freedom. And Jock snapped back, yelling that she was twisting fantasies into truth, that she was obsessed with creating a story that wasn't real. And Rashida's sobs grew louder, until she finally screamed at both of them to shut up, her hands trembling as she said she couldn't take another word. That hearing the two of them argue about their betrayal was breaking her soul, and she buried her face in her hands while Erica scooted closer to rub her back, her voice dripping with venom as she glared at Jock and Ashley, saying, "Y'all are disgusting, both of you, dragging this woman through the mud again and again, and for what? For your selfish needs." And Spice, emboldened by Erica's words, leaned forward, her voice rising as she said, "This is what I mean. This is why I can't trust nobody here, because snakes sit smiling in your face, calling you family, calling you friend, and behind your back they're plotting, whispering, sleeping around like it's nothing, and I'm done with it." And the energy of the circle shifted instantly, the calm meditation vibe the producers had hoped for, replaced by another storm, cast members standing, shouting over one another, Zane jumping in to say Jock wasn't the only guilty one, that at least he had the courage to admit his wrongs, while Jock cursed at him for dragging his name further. And suddenly, two men were on their feet, chest to chest, voices raised, the crew rushing in to hold them back before it turned physical. But the damage was already done, because once the shouting quieted again, the group was split down the middle, some defending Jock, saying Ashley was exaggerating to make herself look innocent, others siding with Spice and Rashida, saying men in the group had been lying and manipulating for too long. And through it all, Ashley sobbed, whispering that she was the one being painted as a villain when all she wanted was honesty. But Erica clapped back that she was no victim, that she had known exactly what she was doing when she stepped into that bed, that she was smiling in Spice's face while sneaking around at night. And Ashley snapped, her sobbing turning into rage, her voice sharp as glass as she screamed, "Don't come at me like you're a saint, Erica. We all know the skeletons you keep hidden." And the crowd gasped, because everyone knew when someone said skeletons in this group, it meant receipts. It meant secrets ready to spill. And Erica's face froze, the smirk gone, her eyes narrowing like daggers, as she shot back, "Say it then, Ashley. Say it in front of everybody. Don't play games with me." And Ashley, trembling but defiant, blurted out that Erica had been sneaking off in Puerto Rico herself, that she wasn't so innocent, that she had been texting and meeting with a man who wasn't supposed to be part of the group. And suddenly every head whipped toward Erica, mouths hanging open, gasps filling the salty air, because the accusation wasn't just about cheating, it was about sneaking outside the show, breaking boundaries that could blow up the whole season. And Erica, red-faced, shot to her feet, screaming that Ashley was a liar, that she was making things up to save herself. But the seed had been planted, the whispers already spreading through the cast. And even Spice paused her rage long enough to look at Erica suspiciously, asking flat out, "So who was it then? Who you sneaking off to see?" And Erica, cornered, lashed out, screaming at Ashley, cursing, trying to deflect. But the longer she resisted, the guiltier she looked, until finally she shouted, "Fine, fine. Yes, I met up with someone, but it's none of y'all business, because at least I'm not sleeping with my so-called friends' men." And that confession detonated like a bomb, the circle collapsing into fresh chaos, voices overlapping, cameras zooming in to capture every tear, every curse, every glare, the entire beach echoing with the sound of betrayal laid bare. And fans watching would later be left in disbelief, asking how so many secrets could unravel in just one trip, how this cast could ever repair the fractures that now split them into pieces. Because by the time the sun set again on that Puerto Rican beach, every relationship was in question, every friendship tested, and the family that once laughed together was left divided beyond recognition, emotions high, trust destroyed, and the promise of even more shocking revelations still to come. The moment Erica's voice cracked and she spat out that yes, she had met with someone off camera, the entire circle dissolved into pure pandemonium, because this wasn't just another rumor or whispered accusation. This was a cast member openly admitting to breaking the unspoken rule that everything must happen in front of the cameras. And suddenly the group wasn't just angry at her for stepping out on whoever she was supposed to be loyal to, they were furious that she had jeopardized the show itself, the money, the image, the brand. And the betrayal felt deeper than any affair because now it threatened the very fabric of what kept them together. And Spice, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and triumph, shot to her feet and screamed, See, I told y'all, nobody here is real. All of you snakes slithering behind closed doors while pretending to be loyal on camera. And her words struck like a whip, each syllable cutting into the group as Erica, red-faced and shaking, stood tall and roared back. At least I didn't sneak around with Zane and Jock like Ashley did. Don't come for me when your house is already burning down. Spice. And Spice lunged forward so fast, producers scrambled to hold her back, sand flying as her voice ripped through the salty breeze. Don't you dare put my name in your mouth when you the one cheating the whole damn system. And the crowd erupted, Rashida screaming that she couldn't believe Erica would play them like this, Zane throwing his hands in the air saying everyone was acting self-righteous when they all had dirt, Ashley sobbing into her hands again, Jock pacing and swearing under his breath, and the rest of the cast fanning the flames, half of them demanding Erica reveal who the man was, the other half saying she should walk away before things got uglier. But Erica wasn't going down without swinging, her voice shaking yet bold as she shouted, Fine, you wanna know who it was? It was Marcus, and a collective gasp ripped across the circle, the name bouncing through the air like a grenade, because Marcus wasn't supposed to even be there. He wasn't part of the Puerto Rico trip. He wasn't on the cast roster for this season, and his name being dragged into this meant a whole new layer of drama, with producers scrambling in the background, phones buzzing as execs realized the cameras had just caught the kind of scandal networks drool over, and the cast reacted instantly. Some covering their mouths in shock, others shouting no way, and you lying, while Spice laughed bitterly, clutching her stomach as she sneered. Of course, it's Marcus. Of course, the man with a wife back home, the man who swore he wasn't touching nobody in this group again, and you go running to him like you proud. Girl, you pathetic. And Erica's face twisted, tears threatening to fall but pride holding them back. Her hands trembling as she screamed, Don't act like you're so much better, Spice. You sitting here crying about Zane when everybody knows you not innocent either? And the circle gasped again, the attention flipping in an instant, all eyes on Spice now, who froze for a fraction of a second before storming across the sand, screaming, Say it with your chest. Erica, don't play games with me. And Erica, backed into a corner, shouted that she wasn't scared to speak the truth. That Spice wasn't just a victim in this story. That Spice herself had been sneaking late-night texts with someone else in the industry. And though she didn't drop a name, the insinuation was enough to ignite another explosion. Fans later dissecting every clue, every glance, trying to figure out who Spice might have been tied to. And the speculation alone threatened to topple her carefully crafted image of loyalty and strength. And the rest of the cast piled on, voices raised, some defending Spice, others saying Erica had a point. The circle now more like a battlefield where every word was a weapon, every secret a bullet. And the mediation the producers had planned became the most chaotic confrontation in franchise history, the waves crashing harder, as if mimicking the fury on the sand. And then, just when it seemed the drama couldn't get any louder, Marcus himself appeared on the beach, storming down the shoreline, shirt open, chest heaving, his voice booming as he demanded to know why his name was being dragged through the dirt. And the group froze, jaws dropping, because no one had expected him to show up. No one thought he would dare face the cameras. And yet there he was, veins bulging, sweat dripping, his presence like gasoline on a raging fire. And Erica, seeing him burst into fresh tears, screaming that she had only told the truth because she was being cornered, while Spice laughed hysterically, clapping her hands as she shouted, Now the truth gonna burn everybody. And the cast scrambled to process this new twist, some rushing toward Marcus demanding answers, others backing away like the explosion was about to go physical. And Marcus, pointing a trembling finger at Erica, shouted that she was ruining his life, that she was trying to destroy his family, that nothing had happened the way she claimed. But Erica screamed back that he was lying, that he had promised her things in private, that he had kissed her in the shadows where the cameras couldn't see. And the crowd roared again, Rashida shrieking in disbelief, Jock cursing, Ashley sobbing louder, and Spice pacing with a grin like a queen watching her enemies crumble. The entire beach echoing with rage and betrayal until producers called for security, fearing the confrontation was spiraling into violence. And as crew members rushed in to separate Marcus from Erica, the cast screaming, the cameras zooming in on every tear, every trembling lip, every wide-eyed gasp, fans would later call it the single most explosive episode ever shot. A storm of secrets that left no one untouched. And the realization settled over everyone. Puerto Rico was no longer just a trip. It was the battleground where friendships died, where trust shattered, and where reputations went up in flames under the blazing Caribbean sun. The storm of emotions that had erupted between Rashida, Kirk, and Jasmine showed no signs of calming. Instead, it grew heavier, like a hurricane that pulled in everyone standing near them, dragging family, friends, and even casual bystanders into a whirlpool of anger, guilt, betrayal, and desperate attempts to hold on to something that kept slipping further and further away. And as the days passed, each encounter between them became a battlefield, sometimes silent and cold, with Rashida refusing to look at Kirk even when he spoke directly to her, and sometimes fiery, with Jasmine refusing to back down when Rashida hurled accusations, her voice trembling, not only with rage but with the raw pain of a woman who had invested years of her life only to see them shattered. While Kirk, caught between two storms, tried to justify, to apologize, to plead, but every word he spoke seemed to make the wounds deeper, as though language itself had turned against him. And in that suffocating atmosphere of mistrust, their home no longer felt like a safe place but a war zone, with even their children picking up on the tension, the silence, the slammed doors, the whispers at night, and the tears that their mother tried to hide. And yet, in the midst of all this chaos, there were quiet moments too, moments when Rashida would sit alone in the living room after everyone had gone to bed, clutching her phone, scrolling through old pictures of happier times, wondering where that joy had disappeared, asking herself if she had missed the signs years ago, asking if she had ignored too much in the name of loyalty. And those questions would circle endlessly in her head until the sun rose, leaving her exhausted before another day of confrontation began. And Jasmine too would have her own sleepless nights, lying awake and staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation with Kirk, every promise he had whispered, every time he had told her she meant more than a fling, wondering if she had been naive, if she had let herself be used, or if she had truly been loved but at the wrong time, in the wrong way. And her heart ached not only for herself, but also for the child caught in the middle, a child who had no say in this mess but would carry the consequences for life. And as these parallel torments unfolded, the outside world looked on with fascination, gossip, and judgment, turning their private agony into public spectacle, with cameras capturing tears and arguments, social media dissecting every frame, and strangers weighing in with opinions as though they had lived the story themselves. And that pressure only made things worse, because how could wounds heal when they were constantly being picked open by millions of eyes, millions of mouths, millions of screens replaying the ugliest moments again and again? And Kirk, though outwardly calm, felt that weight more than he admitted, the weight of being judged, not just as a husband or father but as a man whose every decision had become entertainment. And in those rare moments when he was alone, he too would break down, though he made sure no one saw, whispering to himself that he wanted to fix it, he wanted to be better, he wanted to make Rashida proud again. And yet the temptation, the habits, the ego, all of it pulled him in opposite directions, so that even when he reached for her hand, his hesitation made her pull away. And that small gesture spoke louder than any fight, because it showed how wide the distance had grown, so wide that neither knew how to bridge it. And so the story carried forward, each day blending into the next, each night heavy with unspoken words, each glance carrying years of history, and everyone watching knew that this was no simple fight, no quick resolution, but the slow unraveling of love tested beyond what most people could endure, leaving all three of them, Rashida, Kirk, and Jasmine, standing at the edge of decisions that could either destroy them completely or force them into a rebirth none of them had imagined. The days kept folding into weeks and the weeks into months, but the wounds within Rashida's heart never healed. They simply layered themselves into harder scars. And with each morning that began, she felt a new test rise in front of her, because being in the same space with Kirk had turned into a silent torment, the walls of their home echoing with memories of what used to be, memories that once brought comfort but now stabbed her with bitterness. And when she looked at him across the dining table, when she watched him play with their children, she saw not the man she had built her life with but the shadow of someone who had chosen deceit over loyalty. And yet, the cruelest part of it all was that she still loved him, against her will, against her reason. Her heart still tugged when he reached for her, still ached when he left the house, still hoped when he tried to speak. And that love was the anchor that kept her chained to the very pain she wanted to escape. A contradiction that made her nights unbearable and her days mechanical. And Jasmine, on her side, had grown more hardened. No longer the younger woman swayed easily by Kirk's charms, no longer believing every line he fed her. Instead, her patience had cracked under the constant judgment of the world, the accusations, the ridicule, the label of being the other woman. And though she had chosen this path, though she had allowed herself to believe in Kirk, she too now found herself questioning, was it worth it? Was the fight with Rashida worth the nights of doubt? Was raising her child in this chaos worth the half-answers Kirk gave when she asked if he truly planned a future with her? And those questions ate away at her resolve, leaving her both defensive and fragile, ready to lash out when cornered yet breaking into tears when she thought no one was watching. And in the middle of this triangle, Kirk found himself split apart, every move scrutinized, every word distrusted, because he wanted to keep his family together yet he could not undo what had been done. He wanted to comfort Rashida, yet his arms felt unwelcome. He wanted to support Jasmine, yet his guilt toward Rashida made his support hollow. And in the end, he felt like a man stranded between two collapsing bridges, unable to run to one side without watching the other burn. And the stress of it all weighed on him physically, his nights restless, his appetite gone, his mind spinning with what-ifs and regrets. And when he looked into the mirror each morning, he barely recognized the face staring back, aged not by years but by mistakes, his pride stripped down to raw regret. And it was in those moments alone that he admitted to himself how badly he had destroyed the lives of the two women who had once seen him as a source of strength, how he had turned their faith into rubble, and he wondered if any man, any apology, any effort could ever rebuild what he had shattered. And outside of their personal storms, the world continued to pry. Television producers pushed for more footage. Social media erupted with every leaked clip. Fans took sides, some defending Rashida with fiery loyalty, others mocking Jasmine with cruel words, others condemning Kirk as irredeemable. And this relentless gaze magnified their pain until even simple tasks, going grocery shopping, attending an event, dropping the kids at school became arenas of whispers, stares, and headlines. And yet through it all, Rashida kept moving forward, her strength not in forgiveness but in survival. Jasmine kept trying to find dignity in a place where she was constantly shamed. And Kirk kept grappling with the knowledge that no matter how much he wanted to undo the past, there was no turning back time, no erasing the choices that had been made. And as this heavy cycle continued, the tension coiled tighter and tighter, setting the stage for an explosion that everyone around them could sense was coming. An explosion not of fists or violence but of words, confessions, ultimatums, and truths that could no longer be suppressed. And when that storm finally arrived, it would not just decide the fate of Kirk and Rashida's marriage, or Kirk and Jasmine's connection. It would define the legacy of how they would be remembered, not just as lovers, not just as rivals, not just as a husband caught in betrayal, but as people who had been stripped down to the rawest edges of their humanity in front of a world that refused to look away. The breaking point drew closer with every passing day, like thunder rolling on the horizon before a storm finally splits open the sky. And though Rashida tried to hold her composure, her patience had worn thin. Her smile had become a mask she barely managed to hold in place, and her friends could see the exhaustion in her eyes even when she pretended that she was fine. While Kirk, desperate to keep his world from collapsing, kept promising change, kept vowing to be better. Yet each promise rang hollow because it had been spoken too many times before. And Jasmine, caught between defending her own dignity and demanding clarity from Kirk, had grown tired of waiting for a future that always seemed just out of reach. And so the three of them moved through their lives like actors forced to repeat the same painful script, each line heavier than the last, until finally the dam burst one evening when they all found themselves in the same space, the air already thick with unspoken words, the tension rising with each passing minute. Rashida sitting stiff on the couch, her hands clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white, Kirk pacing the room with his head low as if searching for words that wouldn't wound, and Jasmine standing near the door, her arms folded, her jaw set, her eyes sharp with the kind of defiance that only comes when a person has been pushed too far. And then Rashida's voice cut through the silence, low at first but trembling with years of swallowed pain, asking Kirk once again why. Not for the cameras, not for the public, not even for Jasmine, but for herself. For the woman who had stood by him through struggles and victories, who had believed in his vision, who had raised his children and built his home. Why had she not been enough? Why had he chosen to betray her with someone younger? Why had he chosen to risk everything they had built? And Kirk, stumbling over his words, tried to explain, tried to say that it hadn't been about love, that it had been about weakness, that it had been about mistakes he couldn't take back. But Rashida's tears cut him off. her sobs rising as she accused him not just of betrayal but of cruelty, because every time he lied, every time he hid, every time he returned to her with excuses, he had broken her piece by piece, until the woman who once smiled freely now felt like a stranger to herself. And Jasmine, no longer willing to stand silent, stepped forward and declared that she too had been hurt, that Kirk had promised her a future he never delivered, that she had been mocked by the world, attacked by strangers, reduced to a villain in a story where she too had been lied to, and the room shook with the weight of three truths colliding, each of them speaking over the other, years of pain spilling out all at once, Rashida's heartbreak, Jasmine's defiance, Kirk's desperation, and it felt less like a conversation and more like an earthquake tearing apart the very ground beneath them, until finally, Rashida, through her tears, declared that she could not keep living in the shadow of betrayal, that love alone could not heal the wounds Kirk had carved into her, and that for the sake of her sanity, her dignity, and her children, she needed to choose herself. And her words silenced the room, leaving Kirk frozen, his mouth open but his voice gone, leaving Jasmine stunned, her arms falling to her side, because in that moment, they both realized that Rashida's strength had transformed from quiet endurance into a final decision, and though Kirk begged, though he fell to his knees, though he pleaded for one more chance, Rashida turned away, her tears still falling but her resolve finally steady, and Jasmine, watching the man who had promised her the world crumble before the woman he had destroyed, felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. Vindication that she had not been the only one deceived. Sorrow that she had allowed herself to be tied to a man who could never truly stand by anyone without breaking them. And as the night stretched on, their confrontation echoed in that room like the aftermath of a storm, leaving them all shaken, broken, and uncertain of what would come next. But one thing was clear to everyone who witnessed it, whether in person or through the retelling. This was the night when the love story that had once seemed unshakable finally collapsed under the weight of betrayal, pride, and choices that could never be undone. And just like that, viewers, the Puerto Rico chaos spiraled into one of the most unforgettable showdowns reality television has ever seen. What started as whispers in the corners and tension simmering beneath the surface exploded into raw emotions, fiery accusations, and the kind of truth-telling that no one could walk away from unchanged. Spice's words sliced through the air like lightning. Zane and Ashley's denials only added fuel to the fire. Rashida's breakdown shook the entire room. Kirk's desperate pleas fell flat, and Jasmine's defiance stunned everyone who thought she'd bow under the weight of shame. Emotions ran high, voices cracked, and tears flowed, leaving not just the cast but the fans themselves completely divided. Was this the moment that shattered families? Or was it the painful start of something new? That question still lingers. Now, here's where you come in, because in stories like these, the audience is never just an audience, you are part of the moment. Every opinion, every comment, every debate shapes how this drama lives on beyond the cameras. Do you think Rashida made the right choice by finally drawing the line? Or should she have given Kirk one last chance to prove himself? Was Jasmine truly a victim in this twisted love triangle? Or was she a willing accomplice in tearing apart a family? And what about Spice? Did her explosive call-out go too far? Or was she the only one brave enough to speak the truth that everyone else avoided? Fans are already arguing about it online. Some say Rashida's strength was inspiring, that her walkout was the most powerful moment of the season. Others believe Kirk's tears were real, that he deserves redemption, that no marriage should end without a fight. And then there are those who insist Jasmine deserves sympathy, not hate, because she too was promised love and stability by a man who couldn't deliver. The family is left divided, the cast is left shaken, and the audiences are left to decide whose side you're really on. This is the power of reality television. It blurs the lines between entertainment and real life. It makes you feel every scream, every tear, every betrayal as if it happened in your own home. And the only way to keep this story alive is through your voice. So pause for a moment, think about everything you just witnessed, and ask yourself, if you were in Rashida's place, what would you have done? If you were Jasmine, would you still be standing strong? Or would you have walked away long ago? If you were Kirk, could you ever come back from a mistake this deep? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't hold back. Who deserves forgiveness? Who deserves blame? And who walked away with their dignity intact? The debate is raging, and your perspective could flip the narrative entirely. And while you're here, make sure to like this video, because your support fuels every deep dive into the most shocking and unforgettable reality TV moments. Subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Because if there's one thing this cast has proven, it's that the drama never really ends when the cameras stop rolling. And speaking of updates, let me tell you this: what happened in Puerto Rico is just the beginning. The ripple effects of that explosive night are still spreading. Alliances will shift. Friendships will break. Secrets that were buried are going to rise to the surface in ways no one is prepared for. And the biggest question of all remains unanswered: can this fractured family ever rebuild? Or have we just witnessed the permanent end of something we thought would last forever? You won't want to miss what happens next, because if you thought this confrontation was the climax, trust MIT was only the storm before an even bigger storm. So hit that notification bell, stay tuned, and prepare yourself for the fallout. The Puerto Rico showdown will go down in reality TV history, as the night emotions boiled over and nothing was the same again. And as always, remember, in this world of love, betrayal and loyalty put to the test, the truth has a way of exploding when you least expect it. So once more, I'm asking you, whose side are you on? Rashida's, Kirk's, Jasmine's, or do you think Spice was the only one who really saw things clearly? Tell us in the comments, share this with your friends, and keep the conversation alive. Because this isn't just their story, it's now part of yours.